Call this Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. Can I have an acceptance of the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. All those in favor?
Aye.
Do we have any walk-ins this evening? Sir, come on up. Name and address, if you would, please.
Certainly. My name is Ed Tibbetts, 28 Meeting House Lane. I'm also a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I don't usually come this well prepared, but I wanted to make sure that I said what I said without confusing myself or anyone else. I'm here tonight in reaction to the last Selectmen's meeting on October 18th. At the time, you took up the question of appointments to the Zoning Board of Appeals, but elected to, quote, kick it one more meeting. I'm concerned because this business has been on the agenda since the 21st of June, 4 months and now 14 meetings. At your last meeting, it was stated that there were no citizens offering this to serve or seek appointment to the ZBA. Unable to recruit a replacement, Mr. Danahy suggested that rather than reappoint me as a voting member, the board considered demoting me, his term, to second alternate. It was inferred that as an alternate, one simply observes the business before the ZBA. Far from it. As Mr. Danahy knows, the ZBA is a 5-member board with all 5 members participate in hearings, deliberate, and members who have been present at all hearings on a given matter vote on the matter. The 3 senior members present at all meetings regarding the matter are the voting members of record and sign the decision. Decisions are often drafted by non-voting members. There is little difference between full and associate membership. I don't know for any deviation from past practice that the newest members appointed to the ZBA are alternates and the 3 senior members are the full members, with alternates moving to full as vacancies present. This practice assures that new members have the opportunity to acquire experience and expertise with Scituate zoning bylaws and board practice. I served as an alternate and member for years when first appointed, and then again for years, for at least a year, when I rejoined the board after a brief hiatus. The current move to reshuffle the ZBA is unprecedented. I do not understand the motivation behind it. Absent qualified volunteers to serve, the Board of Selectmen has no obligation to or past practice of reconfiguring the ZBA. This has been a protracted appointment process. Mr. Danahy committed to contact both Frank Lynch and me prior to your meeting tonight. He has not reached out to me, and I want to take this opportunity to share my position on the matter. I serve at the pleasure of the Board of Selectmen. If you wish to reappoint me to my current position, I will accept. Thank you.
Do we have any other walk-ins this evening?
Just to echo Mr. Tibbetts.
Just your name and stuff, just...
Anthony Bucieri at 18 Cornerstone Lane. I'm also a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm currently an alternate member. I guess for clarification, I submitted a letter to the board a few weeks ago, which basically echoes Mr. Tibbetts' sentiments. I just didn't want to remain silent while he was here, so...
Thank you.
That's more or less it. Thank you.
Any more walk-ins this evening? No, that's about it. Yes, sir.
I couldn't help, I am here to present something else this evening, but Steve Gard, 51 Garrison Drive, I couldn't help but feeling compelled to comment on Mr. Tibbetts' eloquent speech. I think that the board probably knows that I practice before the Zoning Board of Appeals and many of the boards in our town and other towns and surrounding. I have been before Mr. Tibbetts on many occasions. I have found him to be a very bright, articulate, fair individual who applies the zoning bylaws to the facts as they are put before him. Mr. Tibbetts has never presented himself as someone that has an agenda, pro-development or anti-development. And being an attorney who practices before the boards on many towns, it's refreshing to have a person like that. It's not uncommon to have people not like that. So that having been said, I would urge the Board of Selectmen to reappoint Mr. Tibbetts as a full member of the Zoning Board of Appeals, as, in my opinion, he's an asset to our town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I make one quick comment? I was obviously at the meeting and heard the comments. I didn't get one note from any of the discussion about Mr. Tibbetts' reappointment that there was any question into his integrity or the job that he's done for the town. So those comments don't make any sense to me because it was never inferred or never commented on. Everyone on this board has only said good things about Mr. Tibbetts. I rarely go to those meetings, but I've heard only positive things about him. So I just want to get that out there in this discussion, that was never inferred or commented on. So, and we're going to discuss it, in a little while, and we'll go into more detail on that, but I just think that needs to be said.
I'm going to reserve my comments until the time it comes up, because obviously those comments are directed towards me. And as a former zoning board member, chairman of the board, there's a lot more to be said about experience. And in fact, I was the one on this board who actually said Mr. Tibbetts should come back on the board back in 2007 and 8, and saying, hey, he's a good member. Nobody's impugning his integrity. Nobody's saying he's not doing a good job. It's just an issue of timing. So, there are times where people have been on a board for a long period of time. Sometimes people who've been on it also should have an opportunity, which would be fairness. So I'll reserve that until that time comes.
We're going to move on to the report of the town administrator. Tricia?
Thank you,
Please.
Mr. Chair. I have a lot of items to cover, and I'll try to do them as quickly as possible. In terms of our water date, right now, the water reservoir is at 37.13% full. That is fabulous. It's up considerably from the low numbers of 21 and 19 we saw 2 months ago. It's still considerably off from the percentage of fullness that we have normally this time of year, which is about 62%. But our residents and businesses continue to do great things in conservation. Over the last 2 weeks, our average gallon per person of 64 gallons per person a day has been reduced to 61 gallons. So that's a great downward trend. And we've had 11 inches in the reservoir over the last few weeks. So what that means is that the rain, even though we've had less rain than that, the rain is actually seeping down now into the watershed, and it's going into the streams now that are flowing into the reservoir. We still have a long way to go, but the water drought crisis management team continues to meet. They met today, and the latest update from that meeting will go out tomorrow morning. So it's on cable, Facebook, and on the town website. Going on to CPC applications, included in your packet is a listing of all the CPC applications that we've gotten from 2017. One of the challenges that we've talked about in the past few years is that the board really doesn't weigh in on CPC applications until after the CPC committee does their review, as they should, so that each project's evaluated on its own merits, and then they come in and they recommend to the board. However, I think it's important for the board to see the types of projects that have been requested for funding and attend the meetings when they're before the Community Preservation Committee. Many of them are on town property, many of them involved other town boards, many of them increase maintenance or need a budget at some point. I just handed out the copy of the Planning Board review of Roach Field, which offers a number of interesting points that will be shared with the CPC. So this is just informational for you, and if you have any additional questions or follow-up, you can send them to me. Karen Conley's here on another item on the agenda. We've had that conversation about timing of projects, so this is just giving you a really early snapshot. And again, if the board's particularly interested in some of these, then the venue for that would be to go to the CPC meeting when it's scheduled, and that entire schedule was issued last week, so I can give you additional information. Health insurance update, you do have an agenda item down later tonight, so I'll forego talking about that now because we have the agenda later. Other items, early voting. I don't know if any folks here in the room had to park in Cohasset to find a place to come. It has been like this or worse since Monday. So, as of today, we have had 3,162 people vote. That is 30% of our 14,628 registered voters. And in addition to that, 1,028 absentee voters. Yesterday, we had 520 people come and vote. Today, and still counting, there's 532 people that have voted today. So I want to express our gratitude to all the election workers who are out in the hall all day from 8:30 to 4:45 and late tonight, and Kathy Curran and her staff. I think it's a great thing, so come and vote if you can. We're here till Friday, folks. So
That's 10 town meetings.
yes, it is. More in one day than came to our
Or
last
good town
town meeting.
meeting.
Right.
So I just wanted to share that with you. The other thing I want to talk about is, as you know, we just received a $1.68 million grant from FEMA to repair the third cliff revetment. You know, the town's been very fortunate the past few years to get a number of loans and grants supplemented by taxpayer funds, because many of them have cash matches. And so this is a new funding source for us in terms of money for Hurricane FEMA. We often get FEMA money many years after we report them, and oftentimes have already done the work, such as a seawall breach or Glades Road, and the FEMA money comes to us and it's a reimbursement. In this particular case, we have not done the work on Third Cliff. The grant funds include design and engineering, so we will be issuing an RFP for that. But this is also a different source of funds because the work involved in doing this is very different from other things, because FEMA does roads or DPW uses of equipment, but in a revetment's particularly difficult in terms of estimating quantities and scales and pictures and stuff like that. So I just want to particularly thank the staff, the coastal team who applies for these grants and does all this work, and Chief Murphy, who works with FEMA as well. But I do want to read a little blurb about one person in particular for this particular grant. Dan Smith is our senior engineer, and he spends countless hours investigating the coastline following storm events and identifying damaged areas. Following Hurricane Sandy in 2012 and Nemo in 2013, Dan has met with FEMA and MEMA representatives on multiple occasions, reviewing the damaged areas and preparing documents, plans, and cost estimates for each shoreline structure damaged in the storm. Recently, when it was announced that we got this grant, we want to recognize his efforts, his exceptional attention to detail, accuracy, and devotion in preparing the many documents required by the state and federal agencies that were directly a result of us getting this money. Dozens and dozens of meetings with FEMA in submitting materials and doing this. So while it's a collaborative effort for all our staff and our officials, in this particular one, I want to particularly recognize Dan, who unknowingly was asked to just sit in on this meeting tonight. So I hope you all join me in a round of applause for Dan. Thank you, Dan. And the last thing I just want to do is a shout out to Bruce Johnston, who is retiring next week, 20 years in our highway department. So thank you, Bruce, and thank you for your service to the town. And that concludes my report.
Okay. Moving on to 7:10, a few minutes behind. Public hearing, discussion, vote for the tax classification rate. Mr. Todd Glowak, Chair of the Board of Assessors. Stephen Gard as well.
Yes, thank you. With me also is our assessor, Steve Jazarambowski, an essential asset to our town.
Of course.
So this evening is the evening that we recommend to the Board of Selectmen, the Board of Assessors' position on the tax rate, or the split rate in town. In our town, as you know, we have a single tax rate that covers both residential and commercial properties. Again, before you is a pamphlet, a handout that analyzes the different scenarios for a shift of a portion of our levy from the residential property values to the commercial property values. And as you can see from the sheet that is entitled FY 2017 Tax Rate Shift. It's this one, if you haven't seen it, it's the one that, really the most important one. Again, we're running into a situation where it's a very insignificant benefit to a residence. On an average residential assessment, a 5% shift would be $16 savings, and it would burden the commercial property by $497. You can take it through all the way to a 50% shift, and you'll see that the numbers get very, very large and askew. The next page itemizes the surrounding towns. You can see that all of the surrounding towns have a single rate, with the exception of Hanover, which of course has the Hanover Mall and Target and all those places. Again, the Board of Assessors recommended unanimously for a single tax rate because of you've got to look at the makeup of our commercial tax base. It's not box stores, it's mom and pop shops, plumbers, electricians, companies like that, we don't even have a full retail grocery store. You know, the marketplace is sort of a mom and pop shop. So we don't have, shifting that burden would be not as beneficial to the residential side of it as we would want it to be if it was a box store type scenario. And we would be burdening essentially our neighbors with a higher rate from the commercial side. So again, the Board of Assessors recommends a single tax rate this year. You would vote on that.
Anybody have any questions?
Thank you for explaining it so
Yeah, it seems
well,
logical to
Steve.
me.
Yeah.
Just a couple, I mean, just the numbers show that we have 95% is residential.
Yes.
5% is commercial.
Sure.
You know,
Yeah.
the value of the properties is like $3.5 billion of residential compared to $4.5 billion for the whole town, so it's very highly weighted towards residential. And we've done this 15 years, and
Yeah.
like you said, they're all mom and pop stores. They're
Yeah.
going to get hit with a $500 increase, and someone's going to save $10.
Yeah, it's not a major savings to the homeowner.
No,
We want to
really.
attract businesses, not scare them away. so.
It's a heavier burden to the commercial property owner than it is to the residential property owner. It would be a pretty big burden.
Right.
Motion?
Yeah, please.
Will the Board of Selectmen vote to approve the residential factor according to Mass General Laws, Chapter 58, Section 1A?
Second?
Second by Mr. Vignani. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you very much,
Unanimous.
folks.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you for your analysis. Marty, can you do B before you do A, please?
Boy, okay.
Steve did say a word.
Jesse Finney,
It's not you.
the library grant. How are you, Jesse?
Good, how are you? Thank you guys for seeing us tonight. I'm really just here to talk to you about a small grant that the library received from the Mass Board of Library Commissioners.
Okay.
We're calling it One Train, One Book, and it's a partnership with Cohasset, Hingham, Scituate, and Weymouth for a grant that will focus on writers of Greenbush, but really it'll be for the whole community as well. And it's sort of a one reads, and we're really focusing it again on the T riders because there's a lot of evidence to show that people who ride the commuter rails are a little disassociated from their communities during their commutes, and this is a way to sort of reach out to them and share library services with them, but also, you know, hopefully promote, you know, them talking to their neighbors on the train, which I'm sure already happens to some extent. We'll be focusing on Doug Most's book, The Race Underground, which is basically about the race between two brothers, the Whitney brothers, one of whom lived in Cohasset, to build the New York and the Boston subway lines. And we have about $22,000 from the MBLC that we'll be spending on a variety of programming as well as materials. We have a partnership with the MBTA on this, and they'll be having some of their engineers come in doing some STEM-related programming for kids. We will actually be getting on the trains and leading book discussions. We'll be going to the trains to sign people up for library cards, handing out books, a variety of things like that. And this will kick off in the spring and culminate with a reading by the author at South Station in the summer. So we're really excited about it, and we look forward to the partnership with our fellow communities.
Very nice.
Great.
Thank you. It's interesting. That was my question, how engaged you would be with the riders.
hopefully
That's
very
nice,
engaged.
yeah.
We actually have 3 people here in town that will be working on it. One is Tony Sneed, the Assistant Director of the library. We also have Library Trustee Elizabeth Holdhouse, and we have a BC High student, Declan Nelson, who's going to participate as well on the overall steering committee for the project.
You have a lot of those riders.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Good luck.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jesse.
Thank you, Jesse. Appreciate
Work
it.
on that, that's great.
Now we're going to go to the, an update, library contingency from Joe Sullivan, the OPM from Daedalus. How are you, Joe?
Thanks for having me, and with Conrad.
Hi, Conrad Ello with Odin's Ello Architecture. I'm here with Joe.
How are you?
So I wanted to, it's been a little over a year since we started the project, and we've encountered quite a bit of challenges throughout the project with the replacement and obviously with the roof structure, as well as some unforeseen abatement and some other issues that we've encountered. The good news is the progress of the overall project has come a long way. We're a little over 70% of the completion of the project. The exterior site has come a long way. The drainage structures and binder has actually been placed on site. The curbing is being installed along with the placement of subsurface soils that will be needed to do the sidewalks and stairs that'll be entering the building. The exterior lighting rough has been installed along with the lighting bollards along the exterior of the library. The exterior of the building is hopefully going to be prepped for a landscaping bed by the end of this next week. So that's what they're shooting for right now. The building exterior envelope, the roof, the cedar roof shingle has been completed. The exterior cedar siding, trim and soffit has been nearly completed. The brickwork masonry has been completed on the exterior. All the doors and windows are installed. The trim around those windows and doors are ongoing right now. So the building itself is getting pretty tight along the outside. Exterior-wise, you can see what the look of the building is actually going to be at the end of the day if you take a ride by. And it's with the interior lights for the safety right now in the building, you can see it illuminated in the beauty of the building as it is once you encounter it at a night time. Interior, they've actually started to install drywall on the lower level. That's a significant milestone for the project. We ended up having to do a lot of interior structural changes due to the roof replacement just to make sure that everything met code, along with the slab replacement and new ductwork on that lower level. With that all being said, I wanted to give you a quick Reader's Digest version of where we're at. We've done a lot of budget modification and savings to try to make sure that we stay within budget, and that includes utilizing every dollar that we can through our bid savings, whether it be furniture or buyouts through any of the testing agencies and any other location that we can do throughout the project purchasing. As we came in front of you, we had a bid savings of $500,000, of which $300,000 went into unforeseen conditions, and thankfully we had done that at the time. If I would have known what we would have encountered from day one, I probably, would have kept everything there, and part of that intent was, as we moved forward, we've encountered about $800,000 worth of construction related, whether it be to the roof, slab, ductwork, asbestos, and other related masonry and reinforcements with the project. We started out with a contingency of $800,000 with bid savings. We were able to relocate some of the budget line items based on our overall budget to increase our allocation of contingency, and with a $921,000 hit to the contingency, it leaves us about $209,000. Of that $209,000, we still have about $109,000 in pending change orders, so that leaves us about $50,000 left in contingency with 70% of the building done. So the reason why I am in front of you is that we...
Math, just real quick, I'm sorry, Joe.
So we start...
You said 209?
Yeah, 209
Right.
was the balance of the contingency. We had $109,193.60 of
Okay.
pending change orders.
But then you went to 50,000, that's what I
Right,
guess.
so if I took that off of there, and then we also had communication wiring that was necessary for the
Okay, I
IT
gotcha.
department, as well as security and data drops
it's
that we
50,000.
kept of $25,000. I held them aside because we needed to do that as well, so I
gotcha.
applied it against the contingency as a placeholder.
Okay.
So brought us down to about $50,370.
I was trying to follow the math, that's why I got...
Sorry, I should have been a little clearer. So at the end of the day, our intent a year ago was to at least try to, use $230,000 that would go back to the town, and not because of the bid savings. At this point, based on the process of where we're at, I feel that 72%, $50,000 is light to finish the project with where we're at with the contingency. And some of the unforeseen conditions that are coming up now are just the reconfiguration of the framing created some challenges on reconfiguration of the ductwork, HVAC, plumbing, and underground drainage that we encountered as we moved forward with the project. So what I'm hoping to do is, our intent and our objective is still to bring this project in on budget, period. But I will ask the selectmen that the $230,000 that we intended not to utilize to be set for the budget that was originally voted at $12 million, to be incorporated as a placeholder that I could hold as a contingency as we move forward to make sure that we complete the building on time and on budget. So these changes with the roof, we basically encountered about 4 months' worth of, between the design and construction of the reframing, the ductwork, as well as the slab and any other underground and HVAC challenges that we've had.
So what exactly are you asking us to do? Take the $230,000 out of someplace and put it in a bucket that you can spend?
I don't know, well, in all honesty, I know we held out the $230,000 out of the overall reallocation of my budget, out of the $12 million. So if you want to call it 11,780, 230 was put aside, not feeling that we were going to need it to move forward with it, based on all of the obstacles and challenges that we had with the reconstruction of this library. I feel that I need to at least put it into the contingency to hold it under there, to stay within our $12 million budget, and to have the building completed.
Joe, can we just, instead of taking it right now, we're holding on separately from your budget. But I'm like, if it's something that you need to, then why not just come back to us and tell you what you need? So I mean, instead of just saying 280 or 230, come back if you're going to need it, then whatever you need, then we'll have to take a look at it and go from that standpoint.
Okay.
Is that, I mean, to me, that would be a way to do it, instead of just saying, here's 230, now you got 280, work from it. Probably just come back to us, tell us what you're looking for, and then we proceed in that fashion. To me, that would make the better sense. I mean, let's put it to you this way. We're not going to finish the project. We're not going to say, no, you're not going to finish the project. We're going to finish it. It's just, I think maybe the board would like to be able to take a look at, what are you looking at?
Yeah, absolutely, and most of the items that are being addressed are mostly coordination issues between HVAC, plumbing, heating, electrical, that we're encountering as we're buttoning up the building, getting it ready for drywall and other items. So, we're on a weekly, daily basis, we're vetting them ahead of time, and, obviously we negotiate it out before any type of approval through the architect design team and their engineers. So I guess I'm here to let you know that the 230, as much as I would love to say that we're not going to, there's a probability that the project will need it. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I think, to be clear, it's not just a probability. I think we're going to dip into that. How much we dip into it is a question. And certainly that's one way of doing it, is to, be as careful as we can to minimize those increased overages, and come back to you when we have a specific value.
Sean?
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Sean.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, and this is all within the original town meeting vote appropriation, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Just
Yeah, and we're
making sure.
confident that we're going to deliver the project within that $12 million budget that was voted on. It's just a matter of that extra money that we thought we had at the beginning of the project.
Is no longer extra.
It's just that it's hard to pay for $850,000 worth of repairs, unforeseens that we really didn't expect to pay within that $12 million, and still give you money back. So that's
Is this the total of the credits we won't, are these completed now? Like anything credited back from things that weren't done on the original?
Yeah, the answer is yes. But we are looking, as we move forward with any scope changes, we're looking at any credits on that type of material or installation of scope back as a credit before we issue any type of change.
Okay.
So I just wanted to answer your question, John. As we move forward, we could come back every couple of weeks to see where we're at.
Right.
But at one aspect of that is that schedule is being driven right now, and I'm pushing them hard to get it completed by the end of January. In doing so, decisions are going to have to be made. I'm just letting you know, to move that schedule along and within a 2-week time frame, I may have to make that decision sooner than that.
So that's what I was going to say,
Yeah,
is
I was gonna-
procedurally, it's not within the realm of possibility that they can approve change orders dependent on the board. What the board can do is approve increments, because the Public Building Commission has only been authorized to approve the budget minus the 230. So this board could approve another 25,000 or 30,000 that therefore the Public Building Commission could approve change orders on. You'd get reported regularly, and then when you need to release more of that 230, you could do it. That's to keep the project.
So let me ask you this, are you looking to have any cost overruns over $50,000 or $70,000? I mean, if we were to say right tonight, okay, we'll put another 25 into the kitty, so now you're at 75,000, because it's the 50 plus the 25,000. There's not any big-ticket items that you're foreseeing in the
No,
future that
they're
you're
all-
going to need within the next 2 weeks?
The
That's all I'm
answer's-
saying.
The answer is no, but there are, change orders that run, they can be a $6,000 to a $15,000 that articulate into a larger sum figure, and within 2 weeks, there's no reason why I couldn't do that. As
So,
long-
yeah, they could do
Yeah.
increments, and every 2 weeks, if you
I'm
have
fine
an
with that.
objection, and they can do another increment
Yeah,
based on what
but
we.
how often is the change order, if the change happens tomorrow, when does that physically get paid? It's not immediate.
No, it's within a 2-week or
Right.
3-week timeframe before, the change order is presented, it's vetted, and then at the time of approval, we go through a building committee meeting regardless, unless, I feel that it's going to hold up schedule significantly, then I'll approach Patricia and we'll have a
Field
conversation.
changes for smaller amounts.
Well, I do like the idea of John and actually Tricia, if you take the 25,000, then the building committee can, if they needed more than that, that might be a good compromise.
But I'd
for
like to,
now.
if I could move 30, just because I keep 200 right now for that, move 30 into it, that gives me a flexibility of 80,000 to be able to move through the next 6 weeks or 8 weeks, so that we're in good shape with that.
I'm fine. I think that's a problem to you.
I shouldn't have waited. Tricia said exactly what I was going to say. But the building committee meets every 2 weeks, okay? And Joe and Conrad have to convince the building committee, this is needed, so he
Oh,
gets,
so that-
he gets beat up pretty much every other
The
week.
side number.
So, I was going to suggest,
30,000?
yeah, 30, 50. I just, you
So
don't
you
want
bring
to,
it up to
slow the project down to the point where
No,
it's
we don't
gonna-
want to do that either.
Yeah, we're
It's gotta
pushing
be
it as hard as we can.
If I can just echo what Mr. Harris is saying, we're going to go through 50. I'm pretty confident. I'm confident we're not anywhere near that 230 number, but we're going to go through 50. And so if that's in your capability to approve that tonight, we'll certainly use it. And I
You're
don't
going to
mean,
go 50 more?
that's my, we're 70% through construction. There's still a lot of work to do.
You mean 50 in addition to the 50 that's
Yeah,
left?
yeah.
What about
I'm
in
pretty
addition to the
I'm pretty
1010?
confident.
The 1010, yeah.
The 109
Yeah,
is.
those are pending.
Those are pending.
Yeah,
We
those
have
are
dollar
pending.
values
And
against them
we're
already.
doing battle on those,
I'm just
but
saying,
yeah.
we bidded out the cost for it to be done, and is every step of it, there's a change order? I mean, it seems like
The
Don't forget the roof.
Yeah.
The answer
There
is,
a lot.
it's done.
No.
I'm looking at $900,000 worth of changes to the roof, to the asbestos, to all those things. I mean, when
That's
do we
right,
get
but
to
it's-
the point that the amount that we bid is the amount that it's going to be?
When do you get to painting?
Yeah, I mean, it's still, it's a 32,000 square foot building, and this, in the normal course of construction, you would go through a $500,000, $600,000 contingency. So when virtually all is used up for the unforeseens, there's still normal business change orders that occur all the way to the end of the project.
But to answer your question, and that's a valid question to ask, because you feel like once you get into finishes, what is there left to change on this? But the difficulties that we've encountered moving forward is that even with the new framing that we've done, and that's all completed, there was contract work that existed that we were going to utilize existing framing. New runs and ductwork changes had to occur because it got taken out of the old roof, had to be put back into that. So that scope that we're at a point now where most of the mechanical, rough, electrical, and all that is being put into it. But it's also finding, other discussions or scope that weren't in that original building that needed to be addressed to make sure that the function of the building continues. So those are the challenges that we're running into. I personally don't see that, as we move forward to the 75 to 85%, it's going to minimize and slowly deteriorate to nothing. And that's the intent of this. But as Conrad is stating, over the next 6 weeks, we're still going to be getting, items in front of us to discuss and vet through based on where we're at.
So I noticed there's only about $30,000 worth of credits.
Correct.
So you
So-
build a new roof, you're not doing something else, so that should come out of the original.
Well, that's not what happened. We took the credit, when we received the bids and the proposals and the solicitation for the new construction of the roof, the credits were added into that when we ended up getting the price for the reframing of the roof and as well as the slab. We replaced the lower level slab because we tore it up so much. We ended up getting credits on existing ductwork that we weren't going to use anymore in lieu of getting the new ductwork. So those were incorporated in each of the changes, and that's the question you're asking.
So there's more credits than what's shown in this piece of
Right.
paper?
The bottom line is the credits were incorporated into the changes, such as the framing of the roof, the ductwork changes, the replacement of the slab, the underground drainage that was included. We had to re-divert because of the reframing, that some existing walls weren't there any longer. We ended up having to re-divert a lot of the mechanical trades into different locations. Those credits and ads were taken in conjunction under each change order, and then we vetted them and put them through. That, I just wanted to clarify your question, that's all.
Sean?
Joe, what's it?
Oh, no.
Why
Just
did it
one more,
again go?
one more question. Original percentage of contingency?
Original percentage of
3%,
contingency, we had
4%.
500,000, we added 300 out of the...
Percentage, by
Percentage of the
percentage.
projects?
Yeah, it was a little under.
$12 million.
8%.
That's,
You
yes,
carried-
6 to
Yeah,
8%.
overall, 6%.
All right. Typically on rehab,
You're at 8, so...
that should, I mean, it was a little-
No, but
It's easy
considering,
to say that when you're 70% done, that it should have been 8.
No, I'm saying any renovation, it typically runs between 8 and 10%. Brand-new construction's 5 or less. That's-
considering all the stuff that was run into it, to me, it's pretty amazing.
keep that in mind when we go to do some other projects, like next door or down the street.
So Conrad, respectfully, I mean, I don't think that you're going to go through $100,000 in 2 weeks before the board.
Oh, no,
meets
no, no,
again.
you're
No,
right, you're absolutely right.
I'm much more comfortable recommending
With
30,000.
Yeah, if you want to
rather
do it in
than
increments, you're right. I just was making a point that it'll just require coming back more
So the
frequently.
Just what it is,
that's all.
and I don't mind
But that's
reporting
fine.
to you on it. I mean, the bottom line is that we're going to complete this building, we're going to do it on budget, and coming to you every 2 weeks to discuss it is not an issue.
Well, hopefully you won't have to do it every 2 weeks.
No.
So the
I love seeing
board,
you guys,
if they're
but-
so
Yeah.
inclined, would make a motion to add an additional 30,000 to the amount the Public Building Commission is authorized to approve for spending for the
Perfect.
project.
Move to increase the amount the Public Buildings Commission can spend on the library project by $30,000.
Second.
Second by Ms. Curran. Further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Appreciate it. It's looking pretty good.
Yes, thanks.
The
Yeah,
building
really
looks
good.
great.
Yeah.
It does, it's exciting.
Okay, next we have a discussion vote for CPC vote letter, Karen Connolly, CPC. How are you, Karen?
How are you?
The chair of CPC, I should say. I'm
Yes, I
sorry.
am, again.
Yeah,
As you may recall, last year, when we came to the Selectmen, we did have an application from the Recreation Commission to buy a new fleet of boats for one of our recreation programs, our sailing programs.
recall it well.
The CPC approved the application with, I think, 1 or 2 people did not approve of it because they thought it was outside the allowable uses of CPC funding, but we did go ahead, the committee decided to approve it. And as you know, this board also approved it, as did the advisory committee. We then received a communication from the Mass CPC Coalition in Boston advising us that a citizen had inquired as to whether or not it was an allowable use of CPC funds. We did receive a communication from them stating that they did not think it was, and so we talked to the Recreation Department, and it was, I think, a $40,000 expenditure. It didn't seem worthwhile to try to challenge that because, as people may not know, 10 citizens, if they object to a project after it's approved by town meeting, can sue the town. And we didn't think it was worth taking the legal risk for that amount of money. So, but we did think it was unfair, that CPC funds can't be used for what is essentially equipment, just like playground equipment. And given our heritage as a maritime community, we thought it would be worthwhile to approach some of the other communities on the coast that have CPCs. We're starting that way simply because it's easier to get your hands around a small group. As the letter that you're looking at now indicates, our hope would be that if we get enough support from these other communities to go ahead, then there are probably a lot of other communities that have lakes and rivers and other bodies of water that they may have town recreation programs on. So I'm simply here tonight to run the letter by you, ask if you've got any feedback, or just to get your approval to go ahead. If you do approve, we will then send the letter out. We've already developed the list. And I do want to thank Dan Fennelly and Chris Roberts, both of the recreation liaisons. Dan is the recreation liaison this year, and Chris Roberts was last year. They worked on drafting the letter. I know Maura Glancy is supportive of the effort as well, and in fact has already talked to a few recreation directors from around, that she knows from around the coastal communities, and people seem to be looking at it favorably. Our next step would be, if we get enough support, to go to Jim Cantwell and whoever our new or senator is after the election, plus the new representative from North Scituate, and see what advice we can get from them in terms of moving forward. So, and it's not without precedent for the CPC or the CPA to have been amended. It was amended back in, I think it was 2008, because a lot of communities objected to the fact that they couldn't use CPC funds to rehabilitate playgrounds and recreational fields. So it can be done. I won't say it's going to happen overnight, but if you don't start somewhere, it won't happen at all.
Great. Thank you very much.
The letter looks great, so, to me.
Yeah, Karen, I want to thank you personally, because a lot of people would have taken this on the chin and just moved on to the next project, and I like the fact that you're sticking to it. It's, who knows if we win or lose, but it makes sense for our community.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
And I'm glad you're pursuing it. So.
Well, thank you, and I think our committee has been very supportive, and I think we'll get support from people in town. I'd like to think that it just doesn't apply to sailboats for the kids. We may be able to buy things like kayaks for adults and have seniors and adults use our recreational facilities as well. So I see a lot of potential benefit to it, and we might as well ask.
As Tony said, thank you. A lot of people would have just left this on the wayside, so
Well, we're moving it along.
fingers crossed.
Yes,
And I don't think it's anything that the powers to be did anything wrong. They probably just didn't think about this sort of stuff.
Correct.
So now that you bring it to their attention, they're gonna look good by endorsing this, by embracing it,
I don't see any real downside to it. Maybe there are people who are more purist about it and think that this only applies to land, but, you have to look at, I view our harbor, our marshes and rivers as to being open space as well. And so hopefully, we'll be able to convince people. But we'll see what kind of reaction we get, and then we'll move ahead. So,
Do we need to vote
Yeah,
to
we need a
approve it?
motion, please.
Move to approve the letter as proposed by Chairman of the CPC, Karen Connolly, with respect to sending out to other communities about interest in expanding the CPA.
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
thank you.
Thank you,
And
Karen.
you have our schedule of hearings, so please feel
What, are they
free.
Tuesday nights?
No, Monday nights.
Always Monday
That's why you missed them, Tony.
Yeah.
You don't have the excuse anymore.
Yeah. It's public.
Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Next, we're going to move on to a discussion vote of disclosure by municipal employee Nancy Holt, Town Accountant, Finance Director.
And with me tonight is Nick Lombardo, our Assistant Recreation Director. I don't know if he's been introduced to the board yet, so I will do so if he is not.
Thank you.
Nice to meet
Nick,
you.
how are you?
Nice to meet you.
What we have before you is a 20B exemption request, and this one's a little bit different than all the others that we had done before. That's why your packet's a little bit thicker, and there's a town council opinion in it. The Recreation Department offers CPR courses and first aid courses, but they also train their own personnel in those items as well. And up until our IRS payroll audit, who showed us the error of our ways, there was an employee or multiple employees that were doing this function and being paid through a 1099 process off our vendor warrant, which is not appropriate. So as with all of these other incidents that came up, we've gone back to see how we can remedy that. So one of the remedies is that this opportunity needs to be put out, advertised, or if it rises to the level, put out to bid. Nick did do that. He put it out on the Recreation's Facebook page, that there was an opportunity for this. And he also reached out to several of companies that you saw listed on the procurement sheet that offer these types of courses. And there was one bidder that they had, it was $4,800. It does happen to be the same employee, but this employee has now, is now part of a company. So this changed the type of exemption, where he does have a financial interest in the company, and he would be the person that would be teaching the course. We just wanted to make sure that a 20B exemption still would apply, and it does according to town council. And the employee has filled out all the paperwork. It is a fire captain, Mark Donovan, and that's on, Lorraine has a copy of tonight, so if the board feels that all the paperwork is appropriate and how the process of the recreation went through to allow other people access to this opportunity is in line, then I would ask that the board take it under consideration to grant the 20B exemption.
Like insurances and stuff, does that come into play, Nancy? If it's
He's never had to supply insurance before. He supplies all of the, or the company would supply all of the certifications and all of the cards.
Okay.
Yeah, the books, all the equipment.
Right, but as far as the actual, there's no insurance required in any of that?
No, but we can certainly ask them to produce a liability
Just
certificate,
curious.
a professional liability certificate.
Right.
Nick, how many classes does he do?
It would be 12 courses, including 2 summer training sessions. So the summer training sessions would be for the 155 summer staff, and then for our 35 lifeguards, which he's done in the past, instruct CPR and first aid to all of them, and certifies over about 200 of them for the summer.
So 14 sessions?
It would be 12 in all, so it would be...
Oh, 12 now, okay, not 12 plus 2.
Yeah, 4 American Heart Association healthcare providers per year, 4 Heart Saver CPR AEDs per year, 2 first aids per year, and then the 2 summer trainings, which are 3 hours each. So it'd be a total of 6 hours in the summer.
And we did ask the Recreation Department to put it out for a full year's worth of courses, so it wouldn't be back before you over and over again.
This is going to last a year, so you'd come back next year for the same thing.
Yep, the opportunity would be advertised, and the bids would then come back in, or the prices that they got would come back in, and then the person who had the lowest bid and was the responsive and responsible bidder would get the work.
And you only got this one response?
Only one.
Okay.
Motion?
Motion?
Please.
I'll move the Board of Selectmen, as required by Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 268A, have reviewed the disclosure form from municipal employee Mark Donovan, who seeks to provide personal services to the Scituate Recreation Department. The exemption under Section 20B is approved for municipal employee Mark Donovan.
Second.
Second by Ms. Curran. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Nick.
you.
Nice to meet
Thanks.
you.
Nice to meet you.
Thanks, Nancy.
Next, we have a discussion review of a one-day wine and malt license, Selectmen policy. Lorraine Devon. Hi.
I'll come to the microphones also.
That'd be great.
Good evening.
Good evening.
So I've been doing some work on our one-day liquor license policy. Over the past year, there have been a number of situations around the issuance of one-day liquor licenses, and the Board of Selectmen, as you know, serves as a local licensing authority. It's become clear that we need to provide more education and outreach to businesses, organizations, and residents about the need to obtain a one-day liquor license and the procedures regulating under what circumstances they can or can't be issued. The board has a long-standing policy that 2 weeks' notice must be given for any liquor license request. And I'd like to put something in writing to be able to send out to the businesses and to the caterers so that everybody is on board with this. But we don't have a formal policy in place currently to send to them. So I'd like you to think about it and take a look at this draft. I looked at many other communities and towns and put together a draft operational policy for one-day licenses for your review. Some examples, last-minute requests for one-day licenses when a Board of Selectmen meeting is not imminent. Non-licensed retail eating establishments holding events or renting their facilities serving alcohol with no one-day license requested or issued by the Board of Selectmen and no liquor license. Lack of a license request or approvals for any outdoor consumption of alcoholic beverages or anything open to the public. Business organization holding events and serving alcohol open to the public with no Board of Selectmen request or approval. Business organizations holding events for members at non-licensed establishments with no Board of Selectmen request or approval. And private residents holding fundraising events for which tickets are sold and alcohol served, which the ABCC advises local licensing authorities should regulate. Any place that's having a function that is selling alcohol requires a liquor license, even if it's your residence and you're selling alcohol.
Right.
If you have a private party and you serve alcohol to your guests, that's fine. I mean, that's, you know.
But if there's money exchanged?
Exactly. So as a result, the following one-day liquor license policy I've put together and drafted for your review. Your comments and edits are solicited. Any feedback, any changes ultimately voted by the board would be posted on our website, and each caterer, business, and license holder would receive a copy. And then they'd be able to ask questions. I'm just letting you review this. I don't expect anybody to vote it tonight, but take a look at the draft policy. We also have a couple other previous selectmen policies that I've rolled into this, so that it could be all-inclusive.
Okay.
Like the 2 weeks' notice, for example.
Yeah, it's a great document, really detailed. I read it, I don't know if I just read it the other day, so maybe we want to digest that a little bit before we vote on it, but...
Yeah, you can digest it, take a look at it. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me or give me a call.
Oh, thanks, Lorraine. It's nice to clear up some of the confusion out there. And that's a good,
It's an education
whenever we can do
process,
that.
really.
Yeah. And thanks for putting this together. I know it takes a lot of time to do all this.
We put together a new form. I put a draft form together, too. One of the things that I think you should look at is we've always had a one-day wine and malt. According to the guidelines and everything I've read, you could also offer an all-alcoholic beverages for nonprofits. The only way they can do that today is if the caterer they use has a state liquor license.
Right.
So that's a big difference from what we've done in the past. I just wanted to point that out because it's very different. So let's say, for example, I'm just going to use the Course Foundation, has an event at the Maritime Center, and they rent out the Maritime Center, and they want to serve a specialty cocktail drink. If they had a caterer with a state liquor license, they could do that because they have an all-alcohol state license. But if it was like Silent Chef and they were having a party for the Course Foundation, they typically in the past currently can only serve beer and wine under our current policies. But according to the guidelines, the selectmen could give an all-alcoholic beverage license for the one-day event for nonprofits only. I don't know if you're interested in doing that, but I did include it here because I wanted to include what the regulations and the law is now.
And don't we get into a lot of tip issues, and I sort of like having the state certification for that.
Yeah.
That would be,
think about that, yeah.
That would be something for you to think about.
Right.
All bartenders are tip-certified bartenders. We currently have all tip-certified bartenders. We currently require liability insurance, all of that. That was the only major change I said, should really be brought to your attention for your consideration.
Okay. And we'll review it. Thank you very
Okay.
much, Lorraine. It's
So I
excellent.
look forward to hearing from you, and
Okay,
happy to make any changes you'd like. Thanks.
thank you. Next, we have a discussion for the annual town meeting date and the town election.
So, our town meeting is scheduled under our general bylaws to be held the second Monday in April. And then, as you know, the town election can be held is supposed to be held the sixth Saturday after the annual town meeting. This year's town meeting is slated to fall on April 10th. That is the first night of Passover, which runs through sundown until April 18th. The next Monday is Patriots' Day. So that leaves Wednesday, April 19th, and Thursday, April 20th as backups. So we have recently discovered through town council that we do not have to also move the date of the town election. So that doesn't have to change because we were dealing with dates about Memorial Day, whatever. But our bylaw says the original date of town meeting, which is the second Monday in April. So I've conferred with the town clerk and the town moderator, and Wednesday, April 19th is the date that works best for all of them. After that, we get into school graduation, end of school year, so this is really, we looked at several dates together and are recommending that the board move the date of the annual town meeting with a backup date to April 19th and 20th.
Isn't the 19th of April a holiday?
No.
I think that's vacation week.
Sometimes it's Patriots' Day.
That's,
Monday, April 17th is Patriots' Day.
The 17th.
This is
Yeah.
Wednesday, the 19th.
I think that's going to be school vacation week, but it is what it is.
Should we check that? Here, I can look.
It is what it is. Otherwise, if you move it out even more, it's affecting the budget timetable as it is. So,
Just for town meeting?
Yeah.
Well, we can't have town meeting during school vacation.
There'll be nobody there.
I said.
Mike Chudowski, you want to,
I don't, Sean, I'm sorry, I really don't.
I'm looking it up.
Off the top of my head.
third week in April typically?
I think it is.
I can tell you.
Because I scheduled something for the last Thursday of the month, thinking it was the week before.
My wife just texted that
It's
is.
school, it's the week of the 17th.
Thank you, Ann, for
And we won't be
watching.
there.
Yep. Yep.
So what other dates?
I can't give you other dates because I don't know the availability of the moderator. If you'd like to suggest some, I can check with the town clerk and the moderator.
So originally, it was supposed to be the 5th and 6th, is that what the...
The
Of
10th,
April.
10th? All right, so...
Passover, so.
Well, what about the 12th or 13th, which is the third Wednesday, Thursday of that
Still.
same week?
Passover runs through the 18th.
You're right. That's why 19th was the first day out of Passover.
So I'd say the 26th and 27th would have to be the last week.
Or you could do that Monday. That's also in play, I guess, if the moderator's available.
Or you go back
The
before.
24th.
The Monday, the 25th.
Yeah.
So,
So we could do,
Any time that
23,
week.
24, 25?
Time that week.
well, 24, 25, 26.
That Monday, 24?
Yeah. Yep.
what is the date?
24, 25, 26.
Monday,
So it's
the
Monday,
24th.
Tuesday,
Any of those
Wednesday.
days.
Monday, the 24th.
I need you to vote some of these dates contingent on the moderator availability, because we need to start issuing the budget documents next week, so this is holding it up. So, in order of if you can just do order of preference for me, that would be helpful, and then I can go ahead and book it if the moderator's available.
Yeah, either work, Tuesday or Monday.
So is the 25th your first choice?
I would say
24th is Monday.
25th should be our first.
24th is a Sunday, Monday is the 25th.
No, you have to look in April
Yeah, you're on 16,
2017.
so
That
we'd
is
say.
correct.
Yeah, so just
24th
go
is
the
a
next
Monday,
one year.
25th.
I did the same thing
I know.
yesterday, thank you, Maura.
I just did it too, so
Yeah.
that's why.
Do you think the preference would be Tuesday over Monday? We'd like to try Tuesday first,
25th,
Yep.
that Tuesday? Okay.
and then probably go to Monday this would be the second choice, and then Wednesday, or Wednesday, then
I'm going
Monday?
to say Wednesday, then Monday, because if people get back from vacation Sunday.
Well, that's a good idea.
So Tuesday, the 25th, and then the date after that?
Wednesday would be the
Wednesday, the
26th, and then if
Wednesday,
nothing, if those don't work, then the follow-up would be the 24th.
Yep.
So we need to
So you need a
vote.
motion?
You need a motion on that?
Yeah, it would just be contingent on the moderator and town clerk's availability.
Move to set the annual town meeting for 2017 contingent upon agreement by the town moderator for first choice Tuesday, April 25th, and second choice Wednesday, April 26th.
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. Further discussion, did you want to put the 24th in there, or just leave the 24th out?
It can be third.
That way we're covered all the way around.
And the 24th as a third choice.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Good. Okay,
Thank you.
perfect.
It's little things that get us.
Okay, next we have a discussion of vote, board and committee appointments, zoning board.
Want to have a discussion? Do you want to open it up to nominations? What would you like to do?
Um,
I think we need a discussion.
All right, I'll move to appoint Ed Tibbetts to the zoning board for a term of 3 years or until a successor is named.
I'll second.
Okay, second by Ms. Curran. Further discussion? Now we're there.
Yeah, well, where do I start? So I think the conversation last time, based on the conversation we had earlier, seemed to be more of a personal thing against Ed, and that's not the case at all. If you remember, when Sarah got reelected to this, however many years ago it was, I said I don't think she should be elected either, because there's people that are alternates that have put time in to be involved in this, and they're just not getting the opportunity to be the non-alternate, or the, what's the correct term for the,
Alternate.
or the live, the
A voting
real-
member.
The voting member. And I know that it does, I don't go to many ZBA meetings, but I know all of them participate to some degree. But when we get people that want to be involved and they're alternates, their expectation is that they're going to move up and be a voting member. And I think when people serve for a long period of time, it deters people from wanting to get involved in committees, and they don't want to sit there and be the alternate. They ran and they want to be on the planning board or the ZBA because they want to be a voting member. And when we keep overlooking them, I don't think it's fair to them, and I think it's going to cause people not to want to do this stuff. And I have not a thing against Ed or Sarah. They've all put in a ton of time and done great work on this, and I just don't think the policy of the board should be that people can sit on these boards for a long period of times when there's other qualified people that want to do it. And I think the last time we had a discussion, the sense was that the alternate people were not qualified enough at that point in time to get on there, but it's my understanding that the alternates do want to be on there. And by us passing them over again, we're losing the process, and we're losing people that may, or potentially losing people that want to do this stuff. I think Mr. Danhe's comment of demotion was not what he intended it to be. It was really more along the lines of, let Mr. Tibbetts still be involved in it, but these people become alternates because they want to become a member. And we did this with the CPC years ago, with people that had the liaisons going on there and being the liaison for 10 years, and that's not what we want it to be. We want people to participate, we want people who are qualified and bring new views and new opinions and keep the boards dynamic. And if there's no one else that wants to be on it, like it appears in this case, I'd love to have Mr. Tibbetts still be involved in it as an alternate member, but if one of the alternates want to be a voting member, then I think we should let them be a voting member. His term is up, he served great for a number of years. In fact, your case, I don't even know how many, I know you served for a while, took a couple years off, served back on again. I think your experience would be invaluable, but I just don't think it's fair to the alternates that they don't get a chance to move up and that they're overlooked.
So I don't disagree with that reasoning, but it wasn't made clear to me that an alternate wanted to step up.
Correct.
So if that was the case, I would have entertained that 5 weeks ago,
Months
whenever
ago.
we first started
Months
talking
ago.
about this.
So it's my understanding, well, we've got one of them here, and we've got Frank, who I know, I'm pretty sure he does want him to be a voting member. Unfortunately, he's not here tonight, But if he does want to be, I think it's our duty to put him up there and make him be a voting member.
Sure, and when did he start? So his term expires 2018, correct, Frank's?
Correct.
He just started, right? Isn't he a fairly new alternate?
He came from the Board of Health. I can't recall when he went from Board of
No,
Health.
Frank has been on, I have an email from him. His first hearing was on July 2012, on the
2012.
zoning board. So he predates Anthony by 1 year.
Okay. It's not on here, so thank you.
Correct me if I'm mistaken, John, you're the one that can answer this. Alternates can vote if they're on. Doesn't
So,
an alternate?
here's the thing. When you're dealing with a finding, it's a 5-board member, okay, so the alternates do have their ability to do it. It's whether the chair declares it's either going to be a supermajority or not. Typically, the zoning board has never said it's only going to be 3 members for a finding. They open it up to the 5. So Mr. Tibbetts is correct. However, what he's incorrect on is that when you're having a special permit, it's only 3 members who vote. It's a supermajority. When you have a variance, it's the same. It's a 3-member vote, which are the 3 members. And when we get to a comprehensive permit, it's the 3 members. So the issue is that while the board does take in the information, primarily it falls on the shoulders of the 3 members. Now, Ed's been on the board since 1997. He came off for 1 year briefly in 2007, and I actually was the reason that Ed said, get back on, because the board was weak at the time. And clearly, he's done a dutiful job. You know, I chose the word demotion because a demotion is defined as a superior position, and then you're put into the lesser of the 2 positions. It's not a punishment. The punishment would be to remove him completely and say, you're off the board for whatever reason, without anybody being on board. But the reality is that, for fairness, you've got 2 alternates. Now, the last time when Sarah was up, we had Anthony, who was put on in 2013. So he could have, or Frank could have been the first person up when Sarah was put on. Now, she was put on in 2015, because it looks like her chairmanship is over, or her term's over in 2018. So, you know, you have a fairly inexperienced board if Frank and Anthony end up becoming voting members. But now they've been on it Anthony's been on it now for 3 years. He's going into his 2nd term for another 3-year period. And John Hallen now has been on it, I think, for 6 years or longer. I'm not sure. I don't see, you know, how long. I think he has been on longer. But, you know, it begs the question that people who are alternates, do they stay in that position until we take the lead person off? And, you know, I concur with Tony on the whole issue. And, you know, that if you've been on for a while, then you take a step back. That's not saying that he shouldn't be on the board. It's just that maybe he should be an alternate so that these other people have an opportunity for at least a period of either 1 term or 2 terms to be able to make those choices. And I see nothing wrong with it. I think it's a fairness issue. And, you know, normally what happens is somebody steps up and says, I want to get on the board, and the person's removed completely. And that's happened to a number of people. But in this case, nobody wants to, so we want to keep the person on. They can still add, they can still communicate, in the findings, they can still vote on it. But that's how I see it. You know, and as far as being involved in the zoning board, I've been the liaison for 10 years. I think I've been to 3 of their meetings. So this isn't like a directive, as it was represented earlier, that the Board of Selectmen are somehow mysteriously trying to get involved. They haven't. We haven't. And so I take objection with that, because we, right now, are looking at it from a fairness issue, saying, people are on it, what are you going to do? But that's my thoughts on it. And, you know, I got the letter from Anthony. Anthony, I don't know where Sarah comes into this because it's irrelevant with Sarah. I really don't care whether you guys have different opinions or not, and you guys are upset with each other. The fact is, you've been doing a good job as a zoning board, and that's a testament to the various opinions that are on the board.
Sean, do you have anything to add?
No.
Maura?
No.
Anybody in the audience?
I said my speech.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Bill Orenberger, 29 Arborway Drive. I'd encourage the board, as a motion made, to reappoint Ed Tibbetts. In my experience in practicing before the zoning board for over 30 years here, I think Ed brings a wealth of experience and knowledge to the board, and that's not in, I think all the board members do, as a matter of fact. And he's a man of high integrity and character. And I don't say that lightly, and that shouldn't be taken lightly in these days where a lot of people don't have integrity and character. And he knows the town, knows the nuance of the town. I think he's a very important person for his outlook. Ed particularly does something, and we don't always agree, and we disagree on a number of things. But one thing I can say about Ed, which I can't say about some people, is that he always disagrees in an agreeable manner, which I think is really important for all boards. And, I'd strongly, advise the selectmen to reappoint him, and also Tony Bucheri is an alternate to reappoint him, because I think he, in my observation, provides some excellent knowledge to the board. And as to, I understand I also understand that alternates at some point want to step up, but the only question I'd have is, particularly just from practicing before the board for an extended period of time here, and in my experience, it's unprecedented that there hasn't been a reappointment for these last several months, because there's a lot of issues from a legal standpoint when you need quorums and votes passed and whatever, and there's been a high degree of uncertainty for the past several months as to who's going to be on, who's not on. So I applaud the board for taking final decision now, but I'd strongly encourage the board to support the motion that's been made.
Anybody else in the audience have anything? Yes, sir.
Mike Hayes, 35 Allen Place. I too would strongly recommend that the board reappoint Ed. One thing I will say that, in my experience, alternate members have had more than just input on important items and voting privileges on supermajorities, especially in situations like 40B that could go on for months or a year or more. You need to have 3 people attend every meeting, and sometimes that would include an alternate member. Sometimes there are nights when a voting member has another obligation or can't make that meeting. Alternate members step up. They're deeply involved in this board. And I think that we have been fortunate in the last 6 years or more to have someone like Anthony and Frank as alternate members. And those members have not agreed with me all the time. They've disagreed with me and voted against certain things that I have proposed. And again, they have done so in a gentlemanly and proper way. One of the things I've always enjoyed taking part of zoning board hearings and presenting in front of zoning board hearings is that historically it has not been an adversarial thing. It has been an intellectual thing where people take facts, apply the bylaw, have a discussion, and see if they can reach a consensus. And to me, it's always been an enjoyable thing. And so I would urge the board to reappoint Ed. I've known Ed for 50 years. He's a gentleman, he's honest, he does a wonderful job for the town. So, thank you.
Can I comment?
Sure.
So, Mike, just a question. Again, everybody keeps mentioning honesty, integrity. That's not even in the discussion. I want to know, Bill and Mike and all you people that are here, do you think that we should overlook people that have been an alternate for 3 years so somebody can serve for 20 years on a board? I mean, that's the discussion here. And it's not comparing it to any other members who we're talking about or not acting properly or whatever, because maybe when they come up, you'd like us to invoke this law and replace them. So what we're trying to do as a committee is appoint people in a fair manner, and we need more participation. We can't get people to sit on boards, right? We've got bylaw review committees where we're out hounding people to come sit on boards, and these are the ways that we think are going to entice people to come and run and want to do it because they actually have an opportunity to be involved.
Well, the only thing I can say to that, if you're asking me, Tony, is that nobody has said to, that I'm aware of, has said to the Board of Selectmen, unless I become a voting member, I'm leaving the Zoning Board of Appeals. You have 5 people who want to be on the board. So I don't see that as an argument against.
So what if somebody did come to me and say, I want to be a voting member?
Has someone?
What if they did?
They haven't, though.
They have, actually. I've talked to Frank Lynch. Frank has said he'd be, if that were the case, but he doesn't want to...
So that's the dilemma that we have. There's no question about Ed's integrity or Ed being able to do it. In fact, you're kind of making the argument that if Ed wants to be still involved, he could be the alternate person and be involved in all these to whatever degree. And if, I got to tell you, if it was Sarah's term up, I'd be saying the same exact thing about her. Because they've been on the board for a long period of time, and there's people that want to go up and do it. And so that's the question here. It's not the question as to whether Ed's going to do a good job doing it. He would. He has.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Anthony Bucieri, 18 Cornerstone Lane, and I am an alternate currently on the board and was well aware of my prognosis when I joined as an alternate. You raise a valid question. I think there's a couple of interesting points to it. I think tonight, at least from my understanding, I received a pretty clear explanation of what you guys are trying to achieve, and understanding that I didn't have really until tonight, and I was paying pretty close attention. I understand that objective. As an alternate member, it doesn't concern me. I could understand if other applicants were coming to the board, and I understand that Mr. Lynch, in speaking to him and hearing from you, would of course be interested in stepping up into that role. I'm not sure that Mr. Lynch reached out to the board, and I think what's drawing some concern from this side of the room is that the board reached out to Mr. Lynch about that question. And also, over the course of these 14 meetings, we saw the board actively go out and look for other applicants when none were coming forward. And I think, although it may have been a mistaken understanding, that's where at least myself got the view that there was an attempt to demote. And I understand, and I received a very clear explanation that that wasn't the case tonight. As an alternate member, I feel like I'm an active part of the board. I think it's an interesting board because on a nightly basis, we're affecting what people can and can't do with their property. It's interesting that it's an appointed board with that much power over a singular private citizen, meeting after meeting. And I think that, if this is a policy that the Board of Selectmen wants to begin to implement, it makes sense. But to do it so quickly under these circumstances and taking away experience from such an important board, I'm a little concerned with the process of how it happened.
Just a couple of comments. One, this isn't starting on this board. We've been doing it for years and trying to do it. In fact, whenever Sarah was up, we had the same exact conversation 2 years ago or whenever that was. And what was your last comment? Brain dead. It'll come to me. But that's what we're trying to do in general. My question to you, what if you did want to be on the board? What if you did want to be a voting member? Wouldn't you like the fact that you'd have that opportunity once you were experienced enough to do it?
I feel that I have that opportunity now. My having that opportunity to vote at the expense of moving a voting member with the experience that our voting members currently have now, I don't value that option to vote in these circumstances where I would over the idea of losing that person from voting.
And again,
I think my vote is best counted and best suited to the board where it is right now, under the present circumstances.
And it's interesting because you're up for reappointment as well as an alternate at this point, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Please.
I'm happy to support Ed, and that's why I nominated him. I, too, have known Ed for 15-plus years, and I think he's pretty objective. And every time I've sat next to him on other boards, being a school committee member years ago. And so to this point and to this issue that it's not about Ed, that it's about alternates and full-time members, I personally would have liked to have known that Mr. Lynch had requested that, because it wasn't, that communication did not come to the entire board, and maybe that's the problem here. We have a communication issue. So in the future, in dealing with these alternates and full-time appointments, if there is that request, if there is that desire, I would hope that our boards are mature enough to have that discussion among themselves, communicate to us as well, so we can make appropriate decisions and not have it appear as, unfortunately, I think this has appeared.
We talked about it.
Yes, sir.
If the board would indulge me one more time on this particular matter, I apologize.
Just your name again first.
Steve Gard, 51 Garrison Drive. To Mr. Vignani's point that the board is concerned with volunteerism and the people being readily available for this, I would ask the board to consider what the impression it would give to potential volunteers in the future if the board was to remove a person or demote them from a full-time member to an alternate member. I would suggest to the board that that would probably have as negative effect on people coming forth and wanting to volunteer their time as allowing someone who is qualified to remain in a position for an extended period. I know myself, I'm an alternate on the Waterways Committee, and it's totally different from the Zoning Board of Appeals. They participate, they get to vote when they can. I'm really just a bystander. So I would ask the board to consider the possibility or the appearance that it would give to those folks that might come forward in the future if they were risking a very long period of volunteerism only to be, say what you want, but rather humiliated when they're not reappointed.
So, Steve, let's face it, 20 years on the board, and we're saying that somebody else who's on the board to be a voting member, that it's time to give that person an opportunity to vote, and you're going to deter people from doing it? It's just to the contrary. Ed's been on for 20 years. It's a long time, and it's a very powerful board. In my mind, it's probably the second powerful board in the town, second to this board. And, this board shall we say, appoints. That's the reason why we're going through it. And believe me, I know it's a very powerful. That's why you're all lawyers out there, and you represent developers. That's how important it is to you folks and your clients. It's equally important from our vantage point, from this board to the town of Scituate. So, my feeling on it is that, we're looking at it from our perspective to say, you know what, maybe it's time to give somebody else an opportunity to vote. We're not saying that this member should be offered or not.
The only thing one second, Steve, to your comment, you're elected for a term. There's a term of 3 years or whatever it is. That's the term. You're not expected to go beyond that. You only go beyond that when either no one is qualified to do it or if, they make an exception to do it. Most things you have to get off. Advisory, you get 6 years and then you're off. So I don't think there's any insult to somebody who served their term well and did it and moved on. I don't think that's what it is. I think, that there's kind of been this impression in town that you're on it until you want to leave. And that's what we're trying to get away from, that there's a term and that, based on the situation and based on the board, that it goes, that other people have an opportunity.
I understand that, but I think from a human standpoint, when someone has put 3 years or more into a board or any kind of volunteer position, and then they are not reappointed when they would like to be reappointed, it is a personal event in their life.
So let me ask you this.
We can agree to disagree.
I just have a question.
We can debate it all night, but my point is simple, that these are human people that have given a lot of themselves for our town. And I agree with John, this is an important board. And we are here today because we want that board to be an important board in our town and for people to apply the bylaws to our fact scenarios fairly. And that's not that Frank wouldn't, not that Tony wouldn't. It's fine. I don't want to make it like that. I'm suggesting that unless this person has, just done something wrong or not applied the bylaw to the fact scenario appropriately, and they want to continue to serve the town, I think you should let them do that. And I think
indefinitely?
What's that?
Indefinitely?
No, well, I think that nobody does it indefinitely.
Well, I mean,
they do it until they decide it's time to step aside, or until such time as the board decides that their philosophy about the town and what the direction it's heading changes. And I went through this in Marshfield, one of the boards I practiced before quite a bit. In Marshfield 2014, they cleaned house. The selectmen decided that the board was not heading in the direction that they wanted them to. So it can change. But I understand your point. 20 years is a long time, John. You're absolutely right. But when we have volunteers like this that are not banging on our door to get on here, I think you should embrace those that are here willing to do it.
Mr. Hayes first, please.
Well, I'd like to make two more comments. And one is, I'm not here advocating for clients. I'm out here advocating for what I think has been something that's been handled less than perfectly in this instance. And I urge the board to do the right thing, not what they can do, but to do the right thing. And secondly, respectfully, John, if you think 20 years on the board is too much, well, you were on the board for, 6 or 9 years, and you've been the liaison for 10. Does that mean you've been involved in the zoning board too long? I don't think so, personally. So I just don't see that as a valid argument.
Apples and oranges, that's an appointed board versus an elected board, Mike, and you know that.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Walter Sullivan. I'm a lawyer from Norwell, and I agree with pretty much everything here that people have said, and it strikes me there really isn't a problem. This town is fortunate that you have somebody with the experience who's willing to continue to serve. It strikes me there's no acrimony on the board, and it would be a mistake to allow somebody to leave the board or to lessen their position when they have the experience that Mr. Tibbetts does. If in fact this selectman perceives a global problem with all of the appointed boards, there should be a global policy to deal with that, rather than specifically taking when Ms. Trezise came up a year ago and now Mr. Tibbetts now. That would be my position. But in this specific instance, it strikes me Mr. Tibbetts is still willing to do the job and do it well, and it would be a mistake to remove him. I would also like to submit, I'm a lawyer, I represent developers and abutters. I have a lot of experience before the ZBA. I've been a lawyer for 26 years. I echo everything that's been said by the people that have appeared before this board. The town's fortunate to have a board where people are treated with dignity and respect, and Mr. Tibbetts has a large part of that. It would be a mistake for this board not to reappoint him. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Bill Arnberger, just to amplify that, I do agree with what Steve said on the chilling effect of demoting people to start with. But also, as John indicated, yes, we do represent developers, but that's a small part of what we do. We really represent mostly mothers and fathers who own their things, who want an addition on their house, who want to do things along those lines. And I'll just tell you, which brings a little perspective, hey, Ed Tibbetts' father built a large percentage of the houses in this place for homeowners and their families, lugging lumber probably from the time he was 10 years old. He understands what the issues are that face people in day-to-day life. And that's an important perspective that, and again, some people may think, well, everyone has that perspective. No, people don't have that perspective. And I see the Zoning Board of Appeals, hey, a huge percentage of properties in this town are non-conforming pre-existing properties that basically, just to do things that most people, as a matter of fact, the way it probably starts, someone wants to build something on their house, they go down to Neil Duggan and Bob Vogel to pull out a permit, only to be told, geez, you can't do that. You have to go to the Zoning Board of Appeals. And I think if you actually demographically looked at what the Zoning Board of Appeals does, I think you're going to find the vast majority of what it does is try to help out people and their families to do something to their own homes. And I think Ed brings particularly with his background, brings a real perspective to people, not developers, but people who want to improve life for their families.
Thank you. Anybody else have anything? Yes, sir.
Ed Tibbetts, 28 Meeting House Lane. I'd just like to clarify, I have not been on the board for 20 years. I went on the board originally in 1997. I was asked by the Selectmen to fill a vacancy by Mr. McLaughlin, who had reason to resign. I think it was because of business concerns that he stepped down. I then was reappointed for 2 3-year terms and a third 3-year term. At the time, in my second 3-year term, I was serving as chairman of the school committee in the year I was reappointed. I really didn't want the job. Quite candidly, I was more than willing to step down. As a matter of fact, the reason I stayed on in 2004 was because we had 40 Bs before us, which had to go on. I think the Proving Grounds was before us for about 16 months. If one member doesn't show up to one meeting, they're no longer a voting member on that issue. If 2 members in 16 months, for some reason, can't get to a meeting, they're no longer voting members. And the room's full of attorneys. But there's such things as constructive approval. If we can't get a quorum, we have to move forward. We have to shut down the meeting and reschedule it. So it's, the reason I stayed on the board is because we needed to maintain quorums. And I left the board at that time voluntarily. I asked that the selectmen find someone to fill my place on the board because I was sensitive to the needs of making room for members of the community. As Mr. Danahy has said, he's the one that called me to say, would you come back to the board? I did. I was reappointed. I was appointed for a 3-year term. I was first alternate in 2008. I'm not sure when it went from second alternate to first alternate, but it was, I know because of an affidavit that I filed, I was first and alternate in 2008. I was reappointed in 2010 and 2013. I was not aware that there was anyone seeking appointment to the board. I'm not looking to be a lifetime member. I'd love to have my Thursdays back. What I object to is that this started 4 months ago, 14 meetings ago. Mr. Danahy has said we should find qualified people for the board, quote, unquote. I'd like to put out a solicitation for more applicants to find qualified people for the board. And this has been held up. And it's only tonight, at the 11th hour, that we're hearing about this wanting to rotate the voting. If someone had asked me back in May, would you consider stepping down so that we can appoint the first alternate to the full position, second alternate to first position, the first alternate, and then we will, if we have no other applicants, we'll ask you to come back and we'll appoint you to second alternate. I would have been more than happy to do that. Unfortunately, it is my feeling that this has been an effort by one member of the board, and I'm going to point it out, John, because you're defending yourself, and I'm going to point blank. For some reason, and I have no idea because I've never been, you've never spoken to me, you've never called me about membership on the board in the last year that I'm aware of. The last time I had a conversation with you was something to do with a matter before the board, and you wanted to clarify something. It's perfectly legitimate. But if there's an issue, the board members in this town who are appointed by the Board of Selectmen need to know this is an issue, not go through an absolutely unprecedented, protracted effort to find a new member of the board in order that a member who has volunteered to reappoint is not reappointed. And in the process, the current second alternate, Mr. Bucieri, who is extraordinary in my mind, I'm thrilled to have him on board, has not been reappointed either. And the board has been in limbo for 4 months because this board has been being directed, I believe, by Mr. Danahy's wish to get someone else on the board. He can deny it all he wants, but if you go back and look at the last 13 meetings, he has made comments on the board that it's an important board and we need to find qualified members. And that was suggested that somehow I was not qualified.
That's not true, Ed. No, that's not absolutely true. I've never said once you're not qualified.
No,
That's enough. That's enough. No, that is not it. I've never once said you're not qualified here, okay? So now you're taking it way beyond the pale, and I'm not going to accept that
All right, that's enough.
in this meeting.
I know, that's enough. Sorry. I think we've heard enough. I've heard enough. I mean, we can go around and round and round. We have a motion, we have a second, and we've had some discussion. So I'd like to put it to a vote.
In the future, let's have the discussion before the motion.
I asked, Tony.
Oh, I know, and I said...
Nobody answered, though.
Oh, I said, let's discuss it.
Well,
And then
all right.
all of a sudden we
Well,
voted.
here we are.
I mean, it doesn't matter, it's gonna go the way it goes, but
Right.
I just think, well, whatever.
Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, so all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those against?
Aye.
Aye.
So it goes 3-2. Mr. Tibbetts is reappointed. We also have an appointment of Mr. Anthony Bucieri as the alternate.
I'll move to appoint Mr. Bucieri as the second alternate.
Second?
Okay, and further discussion on Mr. Bucieri? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those against? Unanimous. Next, we have a discussion of the MBTA solar panels. Tricia?
Yes, you have a letter from town council in your packet. I think many of you may be familiar with the article that was in the newspaper a couple of weeks ago that the MBTA plans to install solar panels at 37 of their parking facilities.
Right.
They've executed a lease with Omni Novartis, a 20-year lease. The panels would be installed over 2 years, and the MBTA would receive just under $2 million a year and get a 3% escalator on that cost each year. We were notified in writing of the MBTA's intent to do that. However, the town executed with the MBTA a mitigation agreement that says only parking and nothing else may go into the property that the MBTA owns. And so therefore, they do not have a right to do the solar panels as of right. It's also interesting to note that in North Scituate, that's part of a historic district, so we have a couple of issues. I just want the board to know the town is on this, and that we have a conference call scheduled with town council and myself and the MBTA Monday morning, so I will keep you updated, but...
So this is in their parking lot, directly in front of the
all their
plant?
parking lots, yeah.
That does not
Greenbush
include the
and
one in
North
front of the
Scituate.
WPA building, correct? Or does
I
it?
don't know, we're unsure. It just says 37 lots. So we have
Spots,
two, Greenbush for sure, but that's one of the things we want to clarify. Mike.
It's not Greenbush, it's just North Situate, right? That's what I read.
That's
selling Greenbush.
It's, part of it is really not clear, but
Could
the
be the
North
other-
Scituate piece,
the other
I mean,
one.
that makes it even more, A, no parking in the mitigation, and B, that's a historic district right there. The
Well, and if they're gonna do that, we're
WPA
gonna
is
get
a
a-
historic building.
I'd be curious to know if we get a percentage of their revenue.
Well,
I doubt it.
I think our
True
our
that.
first position will be that we don't think it's allowed as of right. So what happens under the mitigation agreement is there's a dispute resolution provision. So we have pulled the trigger on that, and Monday is the first step toward that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's that.
All right, thank you. Next, we have a discussion and vote of some one-day wine and malt licenses.
I'm just trying to find them, Marty, sorry.
I know,
My,
I'm so screwed up here.
So do you want a motion to move this along, or are we just going to take a look? Move to approve a one-day wine and malt for Silent Chef for a birthday party at the Scituate Maritime Center on November 19th, 2016, from 6 to 10 p.m.
Second.
Second by Mr. Vignani. Further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Next, we have discussion, vote to utilize process MGL Chapter 32B, Sections 21 through 23, for Public Employee Committee, or PEC. Vote for plan change, plan design changes. Sue Shalou, Cooking Company, Nancy Holt.
So I'm going to handle that. Mr. Lou's not here tonight.
Okay.
I told her she didn't have to come. Due to some oversight, this memo was not included in your packet that I prepared last week. I am going to take the rather unusual step of reading this to you verbatim because
All right,
it's
this is dealing with
important.
the health insurance, is it not?
Right.
Tricia, so
Yeah.
I'm going to recuse myself on this matter, all right?
You're reading this whole memo?
I'm going to read most of it. So, and I will
She
be
really has.
fast like Maura. So,
do I read too fast?
Okay. So this vote tonight and then another vote that will be on the board's agenda later is tying into the health insurance that we provide for municipal insurance. It's a little technical, so I want to lay it out, especially for anybody that's watching at home. So the town provides health insurance to its employees through the Mayflower Municipal Health Group. It's a joint purchase health insurance unit. It has 37 members, including municipalities, districts, and other counties. As you know, we share the cost of health insurance with our employees on average, 53% town, 47% employees. Last year, we received a 15% increase in our health insurance. That was a $681,000 budget increase for us alone. We get $1.2 million in new revenue a year under Proposition 2.5. That took up almost half. So obviously, health insurance is a big budget buster for us, and that increase of double-digit increase was a hard hit on us in terms of what the town can do. Before last year's 15% increase, Mayflower had passed on 0%, 0%, 0%, and then 1.5%. Essentially, what they were doing in this period is, in an effort to keep members, they were doing 0% increases, but really not passing on the annual cost of the plans, which were between 4% and 6% a year. And as a result, started to use their reserve fund to subsidize those rates. The town was very vocal over the years about some of the practices there, and part of the reason was, and we did this process 4 years ago, the legislature passed changes to health insurance that allowed the town to meet with the unions to make changes in co-pays and deductibles to realize savings on both sides. And you adopted that back in 2011. I think, and I can't speak for Mayflower, but out of concern that some members may leave doing that process, they passed on 0% increases. What that meant is the communities who made the changes, increased deductibles and higher co-pays, saved a lot of money, and saved a lot of money for Mayflower. And those savings ended up, for the communities that did it, 7 communities, Nancy? 7 communities who did it, subsidizing the communities and units that made no changes, who were on what they called the legacy plans. We moved to Rate Saver, other towns moved to Benchmark, which were even higher deductibles. So our savings in the Mayflower group started to subsidize those other groups that did not make any changes. So those were argued about and raised as amendments while the rates were set each year by the general board, and nothing happened. Scituate is the 3rd largest unit in the group. We have 849 subscribers. So we are the 3rd largest. Hingham is first, Marshfield is second, followed by us. Mayflower operates on a 1 unit, 1 vote. So we have the exact same voting power as the, let me find it, Carver Marion Regional Refuse Disposal District that has 1 member.
It's crazy.
In 2015, Mayflower had a reserve fund of $36 million. Its subsidized rate increase over the past few years, so the fund balance now, even with the 15% increase last year, is at $12.5 million. This is $500,000 below their own stated financial policy that says they must maintain a reserve of no less than 10%. The other thing is reimbursements they've received from other areas, such as Medicare, have been further used to subsidize the rate, so they haven't gone to the actual pocket for which the revenue was generated. Now, if we want to make a change in providers, and I want to be clear, not a change in health insurance benefits that we apply to employees. This is not about the health insurance we provide to employees. It is about the provider who delivers that service to us. But we need to make a change by December 31st of 2016 to make it effective for July 1 of 2017, FY18. So Nancy and I, for the past 6 months, have been meeting with other communities who have been likewise concerned about what we've been doing. There are now 11 communities at the table. Rockland has already voted to leave. We know of 3 other communities that are actively meeting with their insurance advisory committees to discuss what their options are. We've had 5 meetings with our insurance advisory committee that is made up of a retiree, the union membership, and general employees. And we have asked them, we have told them about our concern, and we've obtained quotes from various other health insurance carriers. And that's what we've been doing, meeting at these meetings, is going over the quotes and informing them that no matter what we do, we're looking again at double-digit increases for FY18. So one of the things that, and I want to say those meetings have been open, transparent, very collaborative, and very productive, and I really want to thank the folks who have come to 5 meetings in less than 2 months about that. So a couple other things about Mayflower. If we leave, we don't get any portion of a remaining surplus. Our agreement with Mayflower says anybody exiting does not get a portion of their surplus. Some joint purchases do have that language. When we I looked at this 4 years ago, when Mayflower continued to keep towns on the legacy plan, accepted new units still on the old plan. We had Cook and Company, our insurance advisor, get some quotes for us. The quotes were very favorable where we were right now. Our portion of the surplus was $7 million, and even though we couldn't get it as part of our agreement, there was some sense that if we really wanted to make a change, we could pursue that legally in terms of the efficacy. What we are responsible for, though, is if Mayflower goes into a deficit. So the units are responsible, as part of the agreement, to make up any deficit that Mayflower might have. As of right now, they have not had a meeting to discuss what the rates are for FY18. That's not surprising, because we did not get the rate increase for FY17 till the second week of April last year, although we have some indications that they are going to try and give us a rate increase very soon. And the other concern that we have is that their projected rate is different than the one Cook and Company has projected, and 3 other communities have 3 other consultants similar to Cook and Company, and they are all looking at projecting between 12% and 16% for a health insurance increase for FY18.
With the current
With Mayflower. So we've all got our utilization data, and Cook and Company has done a trend analysis. One of the things that's important to note is, with that 15% increase we got in FY17, the actual increase was 23%. The reserve fund subsidized 8% of that. So we're just going into July 1, anticipating the threshold is already 8%, and that's not based on the cost of the plans themselves, the utilization data.
And that's because, I remember, we as a town fought that. We sent a letter to them fighting that, didn't we? That 23% increase, that we couldn't absorb that.
So one of the things we've tried to do is be very transparent with the Insurance Advisory Committee, and I've updated the board several times, because Mayflower has and will dispute many of the figures that Cook has projected. Nancy has run a number of analysis. In your packet, you have a graph that shows where the fund balance is and where it is now, if a picture paints 1,000 words. So after we looked at quotes, and we had there was an interest in meeting with Maya, who provides our general liability insurance, but also insures 137 municipalities and regional school districts for health insurance. They quoted us a rate of 11%. Again, your rate is based on what our actual claims experience is and other factors. And the response to them was very favorable. But one of the things is, when we go out to bid, we ask the carriers to match exactly what we offer our employees now. Our union contracts specify that we must maintain the same level of benefits. So we want to do this, and we've been upfront and candid with the Insurance Advisory Committee that we're not talking about changing health insurance. We're concerned about governance and financial management of our provider. So Maya can meet all the plan design that we have now that we offer to our employees and retirees, except they do not offer Harvard Pilgrim. We have 49 subscribers on Harvard Pilgrim and their dependents. They offer something very, very close to that, but there are some material differences in what they offer. So in lieu of the board just making a change to Maya, what we need to do is vote to reinstate the Public Employee Committee, the PEC, under Mass Law Chapter 32B 2123A, which essentially allows us to meet with the unions and discuss how we mitigate the change where Maya can't meet the Harvard Pilgrim. So, for all intents and purposes, the Insurance Advisory Committee just morphs into the Public Employee Committee because it's union presidents and union staff who have all been attending our meetings. However, the PEC process is governed very strictly by a statutory and regulatory timeline where we're compelled to do certain things at very specific dates. So, for instance, today we provided to all the union presidents and the retiree the town's proposal, which is Maya, and to mitigate the changes in Harvard Pilgrim. They will meet this Thursday, to receive that official packet. And that starts the timetable for us to meet with them and negotiate mitigation. We expect, as I said, anywhere between a 12 to 16% increase in Mayflower, even though they might not vote that, the general board might not vote that, and we have to show savings under the Public Employee Committee process. And it's looking at about $1 million right now over the term to make that change. And that's part of the process. The town has to show the savings. So simply what I'm asking you to do tonight is one step of a two-step process, is to vote to reinstate the Public Employee Committee process so we can mitigate for these employees, and we have those funds available with the anticipated savings. And then at your next meeting, I will put forward a vote for the board to withdraw from Mayflower. These two are related, but they're not mutually exclusive in the sense that you can vote to withdraw from Mayflower at any time, but you should have a good idea of where you're going. But that being said, I think that, and Nancy and I have talked a lot about this, and I'd like to, if she wants to add anything, if, you know, it's our responsibility to do our due diligence and be the fiscal officers of the community to make sure that, you know, where we place our employee health insurance or even our pension or any big-ticket items is with somebody who's, you know, looking for the long term and being stable. And as I have shared with the Insurance Advisory Committee, in my previous positions, I created a joint purchase with Scantic Valley back in the early 90s. My other communities have been a member of the joint purchase. I bargained GIC when I was in Springfield. So coming from a background with some experience in the administration of health for employees, I've been very, very concerned about this situation for a while, not only when we were in the plan design change in 2012, the changes that I don't think Mayflower looked at, and I think I was very vocal, and Nancy goes to every steering committee meeting. So I'm concerned about stability and fiscal responsibility. And we have shared those concerns. Mayflower has had representatives attend our last two Insurance Advisory Committee meetings. They have raised issue with much of probably what I've told you tonight. We've been very transparent and asked the staff who have been contacted by some of the members of Mayflower's steering committee. But Nancy and I think, both feel rather strongly that we move forward in this direction. Do you want to add anything?
No, only that, as Tricia said, we've been extremely transparent in that everything that we've received from Mayflower, rebutting analyses or trying to provide more information, we've passed right along to the IAC. We've encouraged them to go to their website and read the minutes and see, you know, what has been discussed in the past, what has had no action taken. And the consultants have also come back and said that all of the things that the steering committee is now looking at potentially doing that could save costs, even if they were so inclined to do them, they still can only recommend to the general board, and the general board is made up of those 37 entities, where only less than 25% have actually ever gone through this process and done plan design change. So even if the steering committee recommended major changes for cost savings, that general board would have to vote it and then go back to their communities and do this process, where they have shown no willingness to do that over the last 4 years when this legislation has been available. So I think there's certainly concern on my part, and I'm sure Tricia shares it, that even if something were to come forward, it has to get back by that general board, and I don't think it can get back by that at this point.
So significant changes, if they really want to recoup where they are, would involve them getting rid of the legacy plans. we have to bargain that. These units have to bargain any changes in the array of plans. Mayflower attended our meeting. It was suggested that they be able to speak to the Insurance Advisory Committee and present their intent. The IAC voted not to let Mayflower do that. We have a meeting tomorrow morning with the other 7 communities that are exploring options. Representatives from Mayflower are attending that, as well as 2 of the 4 consultants that are looking at their analysis. So we hope to learn at least what Mayflower is thinking from a rate and how they're backing into it. But as we stand right now, our IAC knowingly knows we have an 11% increase for FY18, but still wants to explore Maya and the mitigation process. And a lot of what we said tonight will probably repeat November 15th, but as I said, there's lots of contrary information out there, and so we've worked really, really hard to do our homework. We have a consultant, other communities have consultants, and we've met regularly with other communities as well to see what they're experiencing.
I just want to sort of reiterate, kind of, I know you touched on it, but so everybody understands. So there is no surplus in it for us to walk away with, but should there be a deficit and we're still there, we own that deficit.
That is correct.
Yeah, so that everybody understands.
Well, there's a $12 million surplus, right now?
Right now. Right now.
They're, based on the votes that they, based on the rates that they voted in April, which the general board did vote, Scituate voted against them, that fund balance would be reduced to $5.5 million at the end of fiscal 17. Their recommended fund balance reserve, their own policy, is 10% of annualized operating expenses, which is $13 million. So, we're a quarter in and we're already below the recommended policy, and it's been voted to go well below that, and there's no plan to restore it.
So the other concern is that they might set rates early now and come in low, but there's nothing preventing them at any time in the next 12 months from increasing that rate. So, and that's the biggest fear. Now, indications are the first 3 months of July, August, and September of FY17 have been much improved. That's part of the stuff we're going to be talking about tomorrow morning. But again, it's about, long-term stability and prudent fiscal management.
Okay.
Tricia, you said something about we could, and I was trying to pay every attention, every word you said. We can withdraw, but we should have another company lined up. Shouldn't we have another company lined up before we even think about withdrawing from Mayflower?
Well, we're 90% there, and the PEC process may extend past the December 31st.
Okay.
So I don't want to delay the Mayflower withdraw, because, we're there already, I think, in terms of Maya. There's no intent to shortchange the Harvard employees whatsoever, and I think the Insurance Advisory Committee understands that.
What would be the end date? I know we need to notify by December 31st. What would be the end date of transitioning from Mayflower to MIAA? Like, what's that transition date? Is it July 1? It is the fiscal year.
Yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to double check that.
So we conclude the process, but it wouldn't actually happen. We're still paying what we budgeted.
Just want to make sure that, employees all have the appropriate time to
right. Oh, yeah.
understand what's happening.
In April, and, the rate could change again between now and July 1st.
Right.
So we have 900 subscribers, or 900 employees, give it 849, that are on the health insurance. Do they know anything's going on, like what we're talking about right now? Have they been getting updates? You've been, these meetings you pass on to
So
them?
the Insurance Advisory Committee can make recommendations to the board. They're not binding. But what we did at the last 2 Insurance Advisory Committee meetings ago, after we had a presentation from Maya that was received very favorably, we asked all the union presidents to go back and speak with their membership, and our meeting last Thursday was to receive that feedback. And they communicated back to us that they didn't hear anything deleterious.
For one, I remember going through this before with Tony, and it was pretty nerve-wracking. Here we are making decisions of, 800 people, and, we're not part of it. So
But last time, Sean, to clarify, you were changing the health care that you gave.
Right.
We're not changing
Nothing's-
that, except the Harvard Pilgrim piece for
The
that
name?
49.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right,
So
yeah, that-
95% of the people have Blue Cross Blue Shield now, and they'll have the same Blue Cross Blue Shield plan
Right.
later.
Yep,
It's just that MIA doesn't have Harvard Pilgrim.
right.
And obviously, the rates are going
Same
up.
process, but
no
different
matter what,
because
so.
we're not changing what they have. We changed what they had through higher co-pays
Right.
4 years ago.
Right. Okay.
Motion?
Yeah, please, that'd be
Move the Board of
great.
Selectmen, as appropriate public authority, vote that the town of Scituate shall engage in the process to change health insurance benefits under General Law, Chapter 32B, Section 21 through 23.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. Further discussion?
Just thank you.
I was gonna say thank you,
Thank
yeah.
you. You know, we met, Tricia explained it to me today as a scrimmage, and here is the game, and thank you.
It's been a lot of work, and Nancy's
sure it has.
Thanks
actually
for
provided
keeping
the
an eye on
data for all the other communities.
Well, it's good to see we're just not jumping into something. It's
have a
been well
plan.
thought out. You guys have
We have a
experience
plan.
doing this stuff, and it's...
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
4-0.
Ruth, is John out there? Just throw a cookie or something.
Move on to other business. Correspondence?
Sure, we have a couple of items, Mr. Chair. We have a letter from Xfinity, from Michael Gala, the Manager of Government Affairs, advising us of different changes that are going to be taking place, some different channels that are being changed from basic to digital and whatnot, starting November 29th, actually. The first one is actually, it's already taken place. Pivot Channel, which I have no idea what that is, Channel 231, is ceasing into operation, so that's no longer available. I'm not going to go through everything, but there are a couple of channels that will also be affected and changing if you're tennis advocates. Some changes there, on November 29th, and then also on January 1st. Some other changes in rates are actually reducing some of their installation and reactivation fees. So all Xfinity subscribers will be notified by Xfinity via mail. Then we have another nice letter from the Hummerock Beach Improvement Association from Arthur Brown commending, it's addressed to Chief Stewart, thanking him and commending the police force with their handling of Hummerock, especially, I believe, during the 4th of July weekend. So thank you, Mr. Brown, for taking the time and commending our police force. They do a great job down there, and they have really gotten that under control, so very nice. And then, I think lastly, I have an announcement. We have a new Scituate Sister City project with Ireland, and we, in honor of that, there's an invitation here to watch the Irish Rebellion, which is a movie and a film talking about the centennial of the Easter Rising. So that'll be at St. Mary's Parish Hall on November 12th at 6 p.m., and it's a $5 donation is welcome. And that's all the correspondence that we have this evening, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All right, does anybody have anything?
I do remember, go that way.
John?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to the high school football team. Friday, they actually played in a quarterfinal, and they played a great team, Silver Lake football. And Tony was there at the game, too. I'm jumping out in front of it.
Steal my sports report.
I have to say, I was thoroughly impressed by the kids, I guess you could say the young adults, and the way that they conducted themselves throughout the year, but in particular during this game. It was a very close game, came down to the last play. It ended up being a loss to Scituate. The Sailors lost 28-26, but it came down to a field goal, and sadly, it was a freshman who kicked it, hit the crossbar, bounced up, and then bounced again on the crossbar, and then got kicked out. And it was just, for the coach and his team, Dan, Herb Devine and the assistant coaches, they did a phenomenal job with the team. And, you know, for those of you, if you hadn't seen any of the football games, I strongly recommend next year, try to get to one. There's going to be 2 more, actually. One this Friday. They're playing Whitman-Hanson. Should be a very good game, entertaining. Of course, then there's the Thanksgiving Day, which will be on Thanksgiving Day, and this time it's against the arch rivals Hingham. No, unfortunately it's going to be in their football stadium, but I will say it was well done, and I have to say my son played on the team, and you know, they did a very good job throughout the year, entertaining. So just wanted to share that.
Usually I'd be upset with John stealing my thunder there, but he did a great job. Great team, great game, great football game. A couple other sports things while we're on it. Soccer, field hockey are all in the playoffs, and they're all starting this week. So I think field hockey has a home game, and girls soccer may as well. So it's great sports if you like sports. So head down to the field and watch it. One other thing I have is the course event. I went to the course event on, I don't know, last week, and couple programs where we gave citations out to the Best Buddies programs the course has, and then also Tracy Johnston won the Mr. C's Award for service.
Oh, nice.
And she was surprised by that, and she's definitely a deserving person, dedicates time, energy, everything it takes to keep that organization going, and it's really a great organization for this town and a great organization across the state, and they do a great job. It was a great event, and thanks, Tracy, for all you do. That's all I got.
Maura?
I remember 2 things, still lost the third. So first, I just wanted to update you, I did participate in Representative Cantwell's meeting for coastal adaptation. Like to thank him for organizing that. He had every mover and shaker within the state, federal, and local level in that room to listen to specifically Scituate's and Marshfield's challenges with our coastline. So we had Secretary Beaton there from MEMA, as well as Deputy Administrative from FEMA, who is a regional representative, and then also the Seaport Advisory Council deputy was there as well. So it was, I think it was a very well-organized meeting. I think they're very impressed with the proactive approach that Scituate is taking, and I think, you know, this money that we're getting recouped from FEMA, obviously, this week, the $1.68 million is great, and we have a couple of grants outstanding that we hope to hear about shortly, and hopefully we'll have some good news on those. So it was a great meeting. I want to thank Representative Cantwell for pulling that together, and Nancy Durfee did an excellent job sort of highlighting our coastal issues in a nice nice way. We did a little slideshow. She did a great job. Kevin was there as well, and Trish also was there, and actually Deputy Kirk from Seaport Advisory Council pulled me aside and just mentioned how impressed she really was with Trish and Nancy and Kevin. So I didn't tell you that, but she did say that to me, so that was noteworthy. And then lastly, I really want to thank all the small business owners in the harbor. Yesterday was Halloween, and I had the privilege to be able to hand out candy, and it was a blast. Being the mother of 2 20-somethings, you know, you don't get to enjoy that anymore, and it was great. And I want to thank the small business owners and the police for shutting down that street for 2 hours and donating thousands upon thousands of candy to kids. There were easily 1,000 kids down there last night, so it was great. So thank you.
I came down Driftway, and it was like the carnival was in town.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Or 11:45 Mass at St. Mary's. You had all I could do to turn left on First Parish Road. And I just want to add one thing. You know, I don't think other towns do that. And, you know, the winters are long for the businesses.
Makes it
you know,
special.
don't forget about them. I mean, it's, you know, pretty neat thing. And I've said this for many, many years. You know, go to the restaurants, go to the hardware stores, go to, you know, the places in the harbor. It's pretty neat. That's all.
Actually, I was going to mention, I was going to thank the merchants as well, the Halloween in the harbor. There was, again, quite a turnout. I had forgotten, and I was trying to get down there around 3:45, and no chance.
So you got to thank merchants and the Chamber of Commerce.
Oh, that's
because
true,
it's the
yeah.
Chamber of Commerce who actually started it. You know that
Yeah,
from being
yeah.
on it, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
But it's both the merchants and the Chamber of Commerce, because the Chamber's been getting some bad press recently.
Oh, yeah.
I
I
don't
didn't
think that's
actually-
fair, and that's a whole other issue, but I think everybody should get their acknowledgement, because this has been going on for 20-plus years. And they donate money, and they do it for the businesses, and it's important for the people to frequent those businesses, especially, as Sean, as you said, during those lean months, which starts in January and goes all the way up until May.
Yeah, it was actually, I was referring to the merchants themselves, not the merchants, you know what I mean?
Yep.
The businesses, I should have said.
Great for the little ones. I mean, the
That's
parents, that they
Small
think that's
businesses.
it, then it's all, it's pretty neat. You don't have to worry about them walking in the streets and all of that. It's just great. Did they do anything like that where you came from, Tricia?
This town does a lot of things I never saw, and that's one of them, the holiday stroll, the calls to Santa, and we all know I've been a lot of places, but no, I think nothing like that, so it's really great, and,
Some
you
of
know,
us never
after
leave
Maura
town.
left, I took over because they needed 2 people outside the stores, that's how many kids were coming at once.
You went down and volunteered as
I
well?
was there.
Wow, wow.
I couldn't agree, I agree with everything Maura said, I haven't passed out Halloween candy in years, so it was a lot of fun.
Just don't try to pretend you know all the new characters, because
Oh, no.
you get very angry when you don't know what they are. I forget about that.
Before we go, I did want to at least mention one last thing, and that is, I know Jim Cantwell, I think, is going to be at a hearing or at a meeting tomorrow, I think, in Quincy. I just want to say, Jim's done a wonderful job for this town. I've been very impressed. He's been worked very hard along with this board, as well as his town employees, to try to improve our seawalls up and down the coast, both in Marshfield and the town of Scituate, and I hope people will appreciate that. Because he's done a really superb job representing us all. So I hope people remember that, and remember to go vote next Tuesday if you haven't already come down to vote already.
Okay, how about the approval of the meeting minutes? We've got,
Move the Board of Selectmen approve the meeting minutes for October 18th, 2016, and October 19th, 2016 Board of Selectmen meeting.
second by Mr. Vignani. All those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous. Okay, so I'll accept a motion for the board to move into executive session to discuss strategy.
So, Mr. Chair, I think you have to declare, and I would suggest reading the executive session to declare it, and then the board then would actually make the motion to go into it.
Very good. Okay, move that the Board of Selectmen go into executive session to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body, and the chair, I so declare. The fire department.
All right, I'll move that now the Board of Selectmen go into an executive session. As the chairman of the Board of Selectmen has declared that to discuss anything regarding strategy with respect to a collective bargaining agreement regarding the fire union, if an open meeting were to have, if this were to be discussed in open meeting, it would have a detrimental effect on the bargaining position of the body politic, which happens to be the town of Scituate.
Second.
And we will not be returning.
Second.
Roll call, Mr. O'Toole?
Yes.
Mr. Vignani?
Yes.
Ms. Curran?
Yes.
Mr. Danahy?
Yes.
Mr. Patton?
Yes.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you. Good night.